Welcome to the Joy of Cruising podcast with your host, award-winning author Paul C. Thornton, a weekly conversation with the amazing cruisers featured in the Joy of Cruising Trilogy, comprised of The Joy of Cruising, Cruising Interrupted, and new release, The Joy of Cruising Again. Each book is a compilation of features about cruisers and cruise and travel personalities from around the world. It's the next best thing to cruising, hearing about cruising from the unique and diverse perspectives of Paul's amazing guests.
Hello, passionate cruisers. This is Paul, and this week on the Joy of Cruising podcast, I am delighted to welcome Lois, creator of the UK-based Lois No Cruise Control blog, YouTube channel, and Instagram platform. Lois is a highly regarded cruise influencer, 39th in the world according to FeedSpot. On her website, Lois introduces herself. Hello, I am a specialist nurse and a cruise content creator living in London, UK. When I am not posting cruise photography to Instagram, filming YouTube vlogs, or writing about my cruise adventures here, you will find me supporting amazing families and saving strangers' lives by organ donation. Passionate cruisers like Lois epitomize the joy of cruising. They are so passionate about cruising that they want to share it with the world. Lois has an extensive and incredibly diverse cruising background. Yet she started with an amazing 22 straight cruises on a single cruise line. I'm looking forward to asking her about that. Lois and I have interacted over the years on cruise social media, and it is now my pleasure to chat with Lois and to share her story with the listeners of the Joy of Cruising podcast. Welcome, Lois, to the Joy of Cruising podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Very good. A day off work, a nice and relaxing day. And I've been looking forward all day to talking to you.
Good. Well, it's good to meet you virtually. I know we have interacted a little bit over the years.
Yeah.
Before we talk about Lois No Cruise Control, tell our listeners about yourself. Where you're from, where you live, professional background, family, anything you would like to share.
Well, hello, I'm Lois. I am from North Wales, the country that Tom Jones is from, if anyone doesn't know.
Okay.
I'm British, part of the United Kingdom. I live in London now, though. I came to university in London many years ago and stayed here, and then married a Southerner, so I'm down here for good now, I think. I am a nurse by professional background, nearly 20 years. I was just doing the calculations. It's a bit scary. Time flies. I think I've lived in London, England now for longer than I lived at home in Wales, which is scary how quickly time flies. Well, I started my nursing in neuro, so stroke rehab and neurology problems. Then I moved to A&E, the emergency department. Then I moved to intensive care at one of London's busiest trauma hospitals, really. It was an eye-opening job. And then I always had a dream job of working as a specialist nurse in organ donation. I took that job on 9 years ago now, and it really is my most favourite job ever. It's the reason I cruise, to be fair, because when I worked in A&E, I was a sister and in charge there, and people, you see the worst in people. Do you know, you see people coming in, stabbing, shooting each other, people drunk.
So A&E is must be emergency.
Yeah, emergency room, yeah. So you'd see people at their worst, really. They'd been, people shooting, stabbing each other, people drunk and shouting abuse at staff and things. I'm sure it's the same all over the world. Mm-hmm. And then I moved into organ donation, and I see humans at their best. Do you know, they're people who, they have the worst news ever that a loved one of theirs is going to die or has died, and they want to help strangers who they'll probably never meet. And I really see humans at their absolute best now. And even, organ donation's not for everyone. I'm no salesperson, I'm a nurse. I'm there to look after people. So, even people who it's not for them and it doesn't fit in their cultures or religions, they're still lovely people, to spend time with. It's just, I'm honoured really to spend time when they're going through their worst. I'm able to be there for them. And I think it shows me a lot of those people die suddenly. It's not like a long illness. It's a car crash. It's an attack to the head or something, a head injury. It's a spontaneous bleed within your brain. It's people that died suddenly. And then I think that really makes me cruise more, because I just think, gosh, life could change massively tomorrow, next week. Your partner could die, your friends could die, anything could change. You could die. So life is so precious. So in doing that, I cruise lots, which is probably my husband, like whenever I look at him, he's like, what have you booked now? But he puts up with me.
Sounds like my wife.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh,
we certainly appreciate medical professionals. I know I personally have had a history with medical professionals, so I thank you for what you do. Let's you mentioned cruising. Let's switch to cruising. What have you cruised lately? What's your most recent cruise? Where'd you go?
So my most recent one was in November. We cruised on Resilient Lady, one of the Virgin Voyages ships, and we cruised from Dubai to Singapore via India, Sri Lanka, Thailand, Malaysia, and Singapore. Oh, it was amazing. I've never really been to that part of the world before. I've only been to Hong Kong, really, and Macau. I've never been to the bit in between between Europe and there, and it was amazing. India, just fell in love with India, and we only spent 3 days there. I'd love to go back and explore more. It was just the most, I don't know, mind-blowing country. It was just incredibly busy, chaotic, colourful, loud, noisy, like loads of smells of food, and it's just a mad place. And it was an amazing place to visit. And I never really thought in my head I could visit by cruise, which is silly because it's got such a huge coastline. Of course you could. It was quite the experience, and I'd love to do it again.
What an itinerary! Had you been on Virgin before?
Yeah, so I'd done a cruise with them to the Med, and then back in quite recent after COVID times, they did a few kind of cruises to nowhere. Yeah, so I mean, it's a very different cruise line, but I love it really. Yeah, it's great. I think you're going with them soon, aren't you?
Yeah. That's why I was curious. So on your previous Virgin cruise, what ship were you on?
I've been on Scarlet Lady, Valiant Lady, and Resilient Lady now. And I mean, they're all so similar.
So you're a Virgin
Oh,
Voyages veteran. So I go on my first Virgin Voyages cruise in a couple of months, and we'll be on Scarlet Lady.
oh, lovely.
Did you notice? Was there much differentiation between the various Virgin Voyages cruise ships you've been on?
Just little bits, really, like artwork changes, really. The actual layout of the ship is the same, really.
Hmm.
And some of the entertainment is slightly different. Some of the shows that they do on each ship is different, but they're incredible. I'm sure you'll love it. The food is
Yeah,
incredible. Yeah, it's lovely.
I'm excited. I was reading an article yesterday, just yesterday, and I should have the name of the article, but I can't remember. But the headline or the topic was the top cruise ships in the world,
Wow.
and it was 11 ships. All 11 were like ultra luxury,
Yeah.
except for one, and the one that was premium but not ultra luxury is Scarlet Lady.
Wow.
Yeah, Scarlet Lady was on the list, and then everything else on the list was. I know. Cunard, is it what? Queen Mary?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was number one.
Okay.
So
I think I'd prefer Scarlet Lady over QM2, to be honest. But yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
Cunard is on my bucket list. It's one
oh,
of those things that I'm not like chomping at the bit to try, but I want to say I've tried it. When it's
yeah,
when it's all said and done. The thing about Cunard is it sounds a little too formal for me.
it's very formal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but it's
So
nice. Yeah.
so the Virgin Voyage was your most recent cruise. What about your talk about some more recent? What was before that?
So before that, I went on Emerald Princess last September to New York and New England and Canada, and that was amazing. It was my first time in New York, so I was taken by New York. I mean, who couldn't be? It was amazing.
Yeah.
Um, and then to sail out from there was amazing, and it was during a thunderstorm that was quite dramatic. And then, I mean, New York, the New England coast, and Canada. Oh, it was beautiful. I'd love to go back to the little, like we stopped in a Rockland, I think it was in Maine, and went to Camden. Just beautiful little towns like that. Was so beautiful, quaint little places. and all the lobster. I quite like lobster, but my husband doesn't really, so don't eat it that much generally. So I had lots of lobster on that cruise, as I cruised solo on that cruise. And before that, I'd done a few nights on Explorer One, of Explorer Journey, so that was quite the experience. It's quite expensive, but I really wanted to experience it, and it was only a 3-night trip from Hamburg back to the UK, and that ship was beautiful. I mean, they've really designed it like a 5-star hotel, really, rather than a ship as such. But
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't Explorer, is that the luxury line owned by MSC?
yes,
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
it is.
Yeah, I went on MSC for the first time for
Mm.
Christmas,
Oh wow,
Maravilia, but I'm starting to hear and see great things about Explorer.
it was very good. It was, I mean, just the design, the food and everything was spectacular. I think when I was on, there was a few, I think a lot of the staff and the crew they have are from hotels rather from other cruise lines. So it was a bit different in that I think, like on cruises, you sit down and someone immediately kind of comes and says, "Do you want a drink? Do you want this?" There was none of that, but I think they'll change when they get used to cruises. And to be fair, all the food and drinks on board, it was good to have the walk up to the bar to like order stuff and things.
Mm-hmm.
But no, the design and the artwork and the having you had a sofa on the balcony and stuff. It was just they've thought of so many little bits and pieces, and it was lovely. I'll have to like take out another mortgage to go on another one. So expensive.
What was before that?
Before that, I cruised with Ponant on their ship La Belette, one of their explorer ships. That was it wasn't a press trip. It was like a gifted one, but they had invited me to spend the nights on that ship a good few months before, and they were mortified because actually when I got to the dock, they had like double booked a lot of people. Well, I think double booked me. I don't know if it was a lot of people, but me, and they were absolutely mortified. So they offered me to choose a cruise to go on. So I chose one that went from London Tower Bridge, our bridge in London that opens, sailed out through there, and then we went round parts of the UK to Cornwall, went to Wales, and Scotland and Ireland, and it was an incredible cruise. The food on Ponant, it was just out of this world. It's just so beautifully, like when you have food that's posh and it's also beautifully designed on the plate, it looks like a piece of art.
Mm-hmm.
That was the food really, and and it was just enough on the cruise to not eat too much because it was just all beautifully designed. And I don't think my husband liked the food so much. He's more for like a burger and chips or a steak.
Mm-hmm.
And the French, they do their food. They're known for um brilliant cuisine, and the cheese on board was incredible as well, the French cheese. It was an incredible cruise, but again, another one I'd have to take out another mortgage to go on. I think it's so expensive, Bonant. But yeah, it was a brilliant experience, and we had an amazing time.
When and what motivated you to create Lois No Cruise Control?
I think it was in 2019. We'd come we'd come back from a cruise, and I had the most awful chest infection, like pneumonia after, and was sitting at home off work. I think I'd shared my cruise pictures so much on my like personal Instagram that I was just like, oh my God, these people, like my friends, all these people are gonna get so fed up with me. Constant like pictures of cruise ships. I don't remember who suggested. I think someone suggested to me, why don't you do like a social media account like on cruising? And also at that point, oh yeah, it was about 2019. So I mean, cruising seems to have become a lot more popular the last few years. I didn't know that many people back then that did cruise, so I was a bit unusual as a young person that cruised. So I started sharing photos really that I'd taken. It just seemed to take off, really. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then I found it went off, became even more popular over COVID and lockdown, partly for my own mental well-being, like to reminisce about happier times and holidays. But also,
Sure.
other people like to do that. If you turned the TV on all over the world, the news was sad and depressing. And I think people just liked a little outlet of looking at happier times and seeing travel and knowing that one day we'd travel again. Yeah.
It's funny in talking to creatives like yourself. The approach to the COVID shutdown was like very different. A lot of the existing bloggers, people who had been doing this for quite some time, were pretty disenchanted during COVID and they saw their numbers go way down.
Mm.
On the other hand, a lot of new bloggers or vloggers, creatives like yourself, seem to really take to the COVID shutdown. Um, they saw, in fact, I can name numerous creatives, some of whom are well known, like yourself, who started during the lockdown. So they started when ships weren't even, for the
Going.
most part, weren't
Yeah.
even cruising. So it's funny how different people, depending on where you were in your life cycle as a content creator,
Yeah.
how different people reacted to the shutdown.
Two extremes.
Yep, yep. Give us an overview of your various platforms. I guess you have a blog, you have a YouTube channel, you have Instagram.
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
I think Instagram was where I started and where I like taking photos. Basically, that is my favorite thing, really. Different photos, different angles. Instagram was my main sort of content creating platform for that. I think it was my first cruise back after COVID. I vlogged and decided to vlog, and people seemed to watch it, and I enjoyed it. And also, it reminds me of the cruises I've been on as well. So it's memories for me, and it's hopefully helping other people. Um, it seems to be helping other people, bless them. And yeah, so YouTube, I kind of started with that and then had a website to write blog posts on. I'm not so good at the old writing side of things, but I do enjoy it. And that really this year is what I'm going to try and do some more of. Um, and write some blogs about places I've been or shore excursions I've been on to help people choose for their own and cruise inspiration and shore excursion inspiration. I am on Twitter X as well, and TikTok. I'm trying to share sort of the short form videos I make for Instagram and YouTube on there. I find the short form videos are weird. Like I had one just sort of after cruising restarted that had like 33.5 million
Wow.
views, which was just insane. And that's really, I think, where a lot of followers kind of came from. It's insane. I found there's no rhyme or reason between, with short form videos as to who likes what. But sometimes you'll just have one and that was rain in the Caribbean. It wasn't even like, something I'd worked really hard on. It literally was a video of rain.
Now,
Yeah.
now was that on your YouTube channel or your TikTok channel?
So it's on my no, on my Instagram. I did a reel of it.
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
Yeah, it's insane. Like, I'd literally just put a video on, didn't even do much work to it, didn't edit it, just put it on. And people liked rain in the Caribbean. Oh, strange.
so,
But yeah.
so let's go back to the beginning, Lois. Talk
Hmm.
about your first cruise. What were your initial impressions?
So my first cruise was was on P&O Oceania. Yeah, Oceania. Into the fjords in Norway in 2009, I think. And she was a mid-sized ship, about 2,000 passengers. My parents were into cruising and they had started their cruising since I'd left home for university. So they were always telling me that it was lovely and I'd really enjoy it. But being like a poor student, I didn't go on one until my dad offered to send my mum and I on one. So yeah, we went to Norway together. It was lovely. Oceana was a very sort of glitzy, glamorous ship. She's been sold now a few years ago. She was beautiful, and just the thought of like you go on a ship and you take your hotel like round with you whilst you're traveling, it just appealed massively to me. And I mean, I know it does to you as well. Like, it's just a novel way because I didn't really have any friends who were cruising that I'd heard of. It was just my parents who had been on it. So I was like, oh, I'm not sure if this is going to be like lots of old people. But then when I got on the ship and it wasn't at all, it was amazing and haven't looked back really since.
So,
Yeah.
so from what you say, I sense you were hooked immediately.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Um,
How soon did you cruise again?
Well, it wasn't that soon. So it was 2 years later. Again, I went with my parents. I was a poor student still, or had just qualified, I think. But they were going on a cruise to Russia. So I was like, wow, can I come? And they had extra space in the cabin. So I went with them and we did a Baltic cruise on Arcadia and it was incredible. I never thought I'd visit Russia and like obviously probably won't again. In that moment, it was peace in the world at that time. And we got to visit St. Petersburg and it was just somewhere I never thought I'd ever visit. So to visit on a cruise, I was just hooked then to think, where else in the world can I visit that's like really out there and different? And yeah, it was.
Now you might have said this, but what ship was that second cruise? I know it was P&O.
Arcadia.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. The reason I say I know it was P&O is those first cruises on P&O were part of an amazing run of 22 consecutive cruises on P&O. Why did you stay so loyal to P&O for so long?
So I don't think it was a conscious decision as such. Like I'm very much a creature of habit, which is really bad in most terms. Like things like this, I miss on other things. My parents liked it. They cruised from they cruised from the UK, whereas before COVID, there weren't many other lines that cruised often from the UK. They have a loyalty club that they like all the lines do, but they kind of hook you in with. I think my dad, like my mum and dad both love cruising, but my dad, I think, is the one that really, really likes it, the one I've really inherited it from. And he is like me, really. He's very much a creature of habit. Like, well, I'm like him. And once you find something you like, you kind of stick with it. So at the time, that really worked and I really enjoyed it. But now, in hindsight, I'm like, my gosh, there was so many other cruise lines to experience. And don't get me wrong, I haven't left like P&O as such. P&O will always have a special space in my heart because my first cruise is on there. And I've had so many cruises with my parents and my husband on there that just have so many special memories. But it's the cruise line that has changed since we started cruising with them, and not for the worse. It's just different. When I started cruising with them and my parents, they had quite a few small ships and a few of them were adult only. And now I think they're going more with the family or multi-generational family market with Arvia and Iona, which again, I'd happily cruise on both those ships. But my husband and I have never wanted children. Like we've got nieces we absolutely adore and love, but we never really wanted them ourselves. So when we're on holiday, we quite like to have no children around generally. Yeah, P&O doesn't seem to be going in that direction. But again, I would never say no to a cruise with them because they do hold a special place in my heart, really. And I'm very fond of P&O, and I won't like people moan about them. I just think they have such a huge fan base and they're clearly doing well with their two big new ships. So no, I won't have a bad word said against them. I really enjoy P&O.
So with 22 straight cruises on P&O, do they know you?
Oh, I don't think so. I don't
No.
know. I mean, I'm in the top loyalty tier, I suppose. I mean, the PR team there. I've like, I don't know, they know me. That's silly, but they're very kindly like invite me to events and stuff. So that's nice, and that's part of my new.
Oh, so they sounds like they do know of Lois No Cruise Control.
Well, I don't know. Like that sounds. Yeah, I guess. I mean, we went on an event on Iona just recently with Nicole Scherzinger, had her premiere of her show that she's written for Arvia and Iona, and that was lovely. And the PR team at P&O they're very lovely. Spoken to them, so I suppose for a few years. But yeah, I mean, they don't know me, but they very kindly invite me to some things. So yeah, it's very nice of them. Yeah.
Oh, so they sounds like they do know of Lois No Cruise Control.
Oh, I don't think so. I don't know. I mean, I'm in the top loyalty tier, I suppose. I mean, the PR team there. I've like, I don't know, they know me. That's silly, but they're very kindly like invite me to events and stuff. So that's nice, and that's part of my new control.
So then you made a 180-degree turn to Virgin Voyages and sailed. That's when you sailed Scarlet Lady, which, and reading your website correctly, that was your first non-P&O cruise, which was quite a switch. Was there something in particular that made you decide to leave P&O at least temporarily and try Virgin Voyages?
Well, It was in 2020. I remember it because it was literally just before COVID kicked off. And I'd been invited to their launch night of their Scarlet Lady ship. And I remember it because it was the first time I'd ever been invited to anything. And I was like in shock, really. I'm like, oh my God. And they invited us to stay the night on the ship overnight in Dover. So we didn't go anywhere. And my husband was allowed to come with me. And it was I was very shocked, and like going there was thinking, have they got this wrong? Do they really need me? But we went, and it was amazing, and it was the first event I'd ever been to. So to be given like a free night on a cruise ship, I was just in awe, and I was taking photos all over the place. And because it was Virgin Voyages as well, it was so different. I'd been on one Cunard cruise and a few P&O cruises 22, as you say, by then. So it was so different, like as different can be. But it was amazing. And it was so eye-opening to see, like, my God, there are different ways to cruise. And the entertainment and the food concept they had, where they just had lots of different restaurants rather than a main dining room. It was just incredible, really, seeing that all. And then I was like, straight after that, lockdown happened, literally, I think 2 weeks or so later, and then cruising stopped for like, well, a year and a half or so in the UK. So yeah, I just had my taste of how different cruising could be, and then cruising stopped and all finished. And there was the worry, that cruise lines would go bust, and they were all docked off bays. We'll go back to cruising, and luckily we did. And luckily, being a nurse, I got vaccinations quickly, so I was able, as soon as cruising happened back in the UK, I was able to get back on ships. And I think because the UK, we were very lucky in that we got the vaccine very quickly, so a lot of the cruise lines brought their ships to the UK. So I had opportunities to cruise with Disney from the UK, which was insane. Like that had never happened before. So I took advantage of that really, and got on as many cruises as I could in that time.
So after the shutdown, you went on a streak of cruises that were as amazing in their diversity as your start in cruising with P&O was in its consistency. So say something about that.
Yeah, I think after COVID, it really made everyone, I'm sure, sort of question that, life is short, life can be taken from you or changed in a moment. So live life to the fullest. So I did. I was lucky, very, very lucky. And I'm, blessed that I continued. I had work to do throughout the pandemic. I was very lucky in that aspect. So I saved money because there was no money I could spend on cruises. So yeah, I took the opportunity because there were lots of short cruises on. I thought, well, I want to see what other cruise lines are like and experience and see what I'm missing, because I can always cruise a P&O, and I still would cruise a P&O, but there's so many other cruise lines out there. And yeah, so I did go on quite a mission of lots of different cruise lines. Yeah.
Now I'm not going to name all of them because there were a lot, but several of those lines I'm intrigued about. Say something about trade winds.
So trade and voyages, that was a bit stressful booking that, because we booked it and then it was cancelled, and then we booked again, I think it was cancelled, and then more for shipyard delays. And then I remember getting a message from Dave Monk, saying that it had been, I think, the equivalent of the bailiffs, like when you don't pay your mortgage bills, the people who come around and take things off, like the ship had been locked up by them like a few days before we were due to go. So I really didn't think that cruise was going to happen, but it did, and it was amazing. It was our first rigged ship experience, and it won't be the last. It was amazing. It was just incredible to be on a ship that's literally just moving by wind power. I think that's going to be the future, to be honest. And yeah.
So you said your first rigged ship experience. So help the listeners out and help me out.
Oh,
Talk about it was a sailing
yeah.
ship.
So a sailing ship, but it was a 10,000 gross tonnage. So it wasn't, it's small compared to our big cruise ships, but not a small ship. It had, I think it was 3 passenger decks inside, and the space inside amazed me really. It didn't look like it had that space, but it had a 3-tiered dining room over 3 stories. And it even had a diving pool where people could practice scuba diving on it. It was an insanely ship. It was amazing. But
Wow. How many did it hold?
I think it could hold about 200 or 300 people, but because it was after COVID, there was about 100 of us on board. So it was nice.
Okay.
There was more space. Sadly, though, it's not cruising at the moment because I think the company that ran it in the UK was a British company, but the funding and they were chartering it and putting on cruises. A bank owned it, and someone in Russia unfortunately owned it. So it was when Russia invaded Ukraine, and all Russian rich people's assets got locked away. That ship was one of them. So it's currently not sailing. And with Ukraine and Russia, like who knows when that will finish? And then I guess it's going to take many years after that for assets to be released again. So it's not sad in comparison what the poor people in Russia and Ukraine, the normal people are going through. Like that's awful. And yeah, it's a shame, but it's life, I guess.
Another one that you went on is Azamara. I certainly have heard of Azamara, and I've had a number of friends and associates go on Azamara, but I still have not yet gone on Azamara. What's that like?
Oh yeah, we loved Azamara. I think it's a great in between a big ship, well, between Celebrity and between Silversea, like it was between the two. So you have the little ship, but it's not quite as expensive as Silversea. No, it's not quite as high end as that, but it's beautiful. And they do very intensive itineraries. So I did an itinerary with them to Italy. So you go to lots of ports in Italy. And we did a Monaco Grand Prix cruise
Oh,
with them as
wow.
well. Yeah, it was amazing. And it was great because they dropped anchor off Monaco on the race day and then tendered you in and gave you a packed lunch, and you could book your tickets for the tribunes, the grandstands through Azamara, and then they took you to your seat. It was so well
Oh,
organized, and it's definitely,
wow.
I mean, the Monaco Grand Prix would be expensive, but I think definitely on a cruise with Azamara or something would be one of the cheaper ways to do it. Not that there's a cheap way. The Monaco Grand Prix is not cheap, like, don't get me wrong, but it was worth it. It was worth every minute. It was so, and they made the cruise so special. Like everything had a kind of Grand Prix theme to it. But if you weren't interested in the Grand Prix, it wouldn't have upset your cruise. It was just little things like when they had their buffet, they'd have like a cake in the shape of a racing car or something, and little checkered flags dotted around. And their attention to detail was brilliant, really, on Azamara.
Was that your first time in Monaco?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
I've been back with Azamara again. That my cruise to Italy started in Monaco,
Okay.
but yeah, Azamara are great. And I highly recommend them as well for solo cruising. So I've done a solo cruise with them, and I've looked at a few of them, and they seem to price quite reasonably for solo cruises, to be fair. Um, and the people on the ships are so friendly. Um, yeah. So I think solo cruises, have a look at Azamara. Don't think that they might be really expensive because sometimes you can get some good deals.
Yeah, I went to Monaco. Oh, when I was on Celebrity Beyond, actually, I went. We went to the French Riviera, and they, on a tour, they talked a lot about the Grand Prix, and as we were riding in this, I couldn't imagine how they could do that. Well, based on what I saw, but it's a big deal, I'm sure.
Oh, it's so busy. And in the same year, I'd seen Monaco. So I saw it first as race day and then saw it after normal. And it was just like, oh my God, it's so quiet here when
Hmm.
it's not race day and so few people. But yeah, it's a fabulous place, that place. One day I might win the lottery and move there.
There you go. Well, the tour driver said every resident was a millionaire. So,
Well, I'm nowhere near a millionaire, so a long time to
well, you said when you win the lottery. So,
yeah. I'll keep trying.
Silver Sea was another one that caught my eye. Obviously, I've heard of Silver Sea, but haven't gotten anywhere near it.
Oh.
That's on my bucket list, but no time soon. Talk about that.
So we booked that for our 10th wedding anniversary. So as something special. It's my job, I think, because every day in my job I see young people die. And I'm an organ donation coordinator. So it's very sad stories, people, sudden accidents, sudden brain hemorrhages, all sorts. So much to my husband, who has had a brain hemorrhage himself, bless him, survived. He was very sick about 20 years ago. I am very much like, as long as we can pay our bills and our mortgage, like I want to live life to the fullest, because you never know when life might be over or one of us might be so ill that we can't travel. Or so I managed to persuade him to go on a Silver Sea cruise for our 10th wedding anniversary for something special. So we saved for that. And then we went, it was from Venice, but not in Venice anymore because they don't have the ships there. So we joined in Venice, and then they bussed us about half an hour away to a port where we got on the ship. And then we cruised around Croatia and Montenegro and Slovenia. Yeah, and Corfu as well. So it was lovely. We didn't really know that part of the world at all. I'd been to Venice as a kid, but I couldn't really remember it. So it was lovely. And Silver Sea, I think we thought it might be a bit kind of stuffy and a bit like snobby, but it wasn't at all. It was lovely. It was laid back. People were so friendly, so lovely. It was a novelty having a butler. And had butlers on cruises like P&O before, but it was a different, like the butlers on Silver Sea. I think they have less people to look after, I think, as well, obviously, and they just sort of anticipated what you wanted before you wanted it. It was amazing. It was lovely.
Now, I suspect you and your husband were the youngest on Silver Sea.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. I mean, there were quite a few. It was quite a wide range of ages, to be fair. I think we're definitely the youngest, maybe in our 30s, but there was people. It was definitely, I'd say 50s, 60s was the general kind of age range. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um,
And did you say how many it holds?
oh, I can't remember. I
Oh,
think about
it's all right.
800,
Yeah.
900. It's quite
Yeah,
full of
I'll
things,
look it
quite a
up
few.
because, as I said, Silver Sea is on my
Oh,
bucket list, and belated happy 10th. I went on my 30th on that was the trip on Celebrity Beyond.
oh,
So
lovely.
so I'm sure we'll do something special for our 35th, and who knows, maybe that'll be Silver Sea. So let's see. Then you went on another one I've heard of, but and it's on my bucket list in the same area as Silver Sea, and that's Seaborn.
Yeah. I mean, this, I was naughty. I managed to get another 10th wedding anniversary cruise.
Well, I'm gonna
I was,
I'm gonna try that with my wife for our 35th.
yeah. I think people say to him, was it happy wife, happy life? Sometimes he thinks to just agree. Um, I mean, we both do a lot of overtime and stuff at work. So I'm always saying to him, do you know, like we only live once, and it does take me a while to persuade him. So he's more into saving than me, and I'm like, we need to save so we have a few months of wages, just in case something happens. But ultimately, we pay for life insurance and stuff, So when we save money and earn money, like you need to have experiences in life as well, and life is short for many, and we have the honor of being able to live and being healthy and have jobs. And I just say to him, we need to live life because you never know when anything might change. And
There you go, Lois. You
yeah.
sound a lot. You sound a lot like me,
Oh.
and your husband sounds similar to my wife. Uh, he's not an accountant by training, is he?
No, no, he's an engineer, but I wouldn't surprise if he's like interested in accounts, to be honest.
Well, engineers and accountants think kind of alike. My wife is an accountant by
Um,
trade, and so I will make sure that she listens to this podcast.
oh,
And then she'll understand where I'm coming from when I say, "Hey, hon, let's go on 2 cruises for our 35th."
Yeah. But
So, okay, another one, slightly familiar with, Ponant.
so Ponant, initially I'd been invited on there by Ponant for a one night sailing. No, one night I think, from London to Paris, and then I accepted with so much excitement, and then went to the port on the day, Tower Bridge, in London, the big, famous bridge we've got. We were getting on there. Well, I was getting on there, but then when I went to check in, they'd double booked the room. So I was like, oh, well, I have to go home. There's no room for me. But they were so mortified, bless them. And I mean, in the moment, I was a bit annoyed because luckily I was from London, so I could easily get home. It was no problem. But if someone had travelled miles to there, they would have been stranded. But I'm sure Ponant would have got them a taxi and dealt with them. But they didn't need to with me. I was in London. But the man, bless him, he was so mortified. I think he was more upset than I was, bless him. And they very kindly then invited me to choose a cruise to go on. And I had the bucket list of wanting to sail out of London, out of Tower Bridge, the bridge that moves up, the very famous one. They so I picked an itinerary that was a British Isles cruise. So my husband was allowed to come with me too. So we went from London, Tower Bridge, and sailed all the way down the Thames, which was an amazing experience. And we were out on deck right to the end till we got to the sea, whereas most people, I think, went from Britain and they'd gone back into the warmth. But we were in our element at the front of the ship watching the river transverse down. And then we went to Cornwall and my homeland, Wales. We stopped there, and then we went to Ireland, and then ended in Scotland. And it was an incredible experience. I loved the food on there because it was all very, very French, obviously, and very beautiful and beautifully decorated. My husband wasn't quite so keen on the food. He likes a burger and a steak, and the cheese was amazing as well. Being a French cruise line, it was incredible.
Which Ponant was that?
Le Belot. Belot. My French pronunciation is not good.
Okay.
Belot, I think. Hello. It amazed me actually on a small ship like that. It amazed me how much entertainment was going on at night. Like there was lots of different musics and shows and stuff going on. And the British and the French kind of have a love-hate relationship, but they were so friendly and so lovely. And we tried really hard to speak French, and things like, if we couldn't have a full-on conversation, we'd say things like good morning, good night, please, thank yous. And the other passengers, who were mostly French, but they were so friendly and so lovely. And it was an amazing experience. It's a save a lot to go again with Ponant. It's very expensive.
So another one that you mentioned, correct me if I'm wrong, you mentioned Explorer. Now, isn't that the luxury brand of MSC?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So I treated myself to a trip with them. They were doing a short, can't remember, it was 3 or 4 nights. I think it was 3-night cruise from Hamburg in Germany back to Southampton. So 3 nights. I mean, it was expensive, but I wanted to experience it. I'd experienced Yacht Club a few years ago, so I wanted to see how it compared. And there was been a lot of talk about it in that, well, it was a brand new cruise line. It's just very, very exciting. So yeah, I went over to Hamburg and got on, and the ship is beautiful. It's very, very much like a 5-star resort, really, rather than a cruise ship. It's beautiful, and the food was amazing. Occasionally, I've seen some good deals on it for like cruises in the Caribbean and stuff. So I think if someone's umming and ahhing and you see a deal, go for it, because that ship is amazing. It's beautiful.
What ship were you on that you did the yacht club?
Virtuosa, for one of her maiden voyages.
Okay.
Yeah. My next cruise on my husband is on World Europa in the yacht club, so we're looking forward to that. That's in April.
How did you like Virtuosa?
Yeah. And we were very, very lucky though, because we were on her when it was just 1,000 passengers. That was it.
Oh, that was right after the pandemic, right? Yeah. Yes.
One of our first cruises back. So I think it was our first cruise back, actually.
Okay.
We had a stewed experience, I guess. And in the yacht club, there was only like 30 of us. So it was incredible. It was, yeah. But She's a beautiful ship, I'm sure, and it's so big. I'm sure the 6,000 people get, spread out. And have you been on Virtuosa?
We went on Virtuosa's, I believe it's her sister,
Yeah.
Meraviglia. That was we went on that for Christmas. That was our first
Oh,
experience with MSC. MSC gets some very mixed reviews here in the States.
does. Yeah, and here too, really.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So I gave, I did a review on a podcast after we got back, and
Mm.
in a lot of ways, as you say, all of their ships are beautiful. In my review, the bottom line was, in a lot of ways, it's on par with its competitors, which I consider to be Royal and Carnival and NCL. Meraviglia had one big issue that I think would be very troublesome to U.S. travelers and probably to travelers abroad as well, and that was compared to those other lines that I mentioned. It lacked any complimentary food options. There was just the buffet and the main dining room.
Yeah.
And if you're a veteran Royal or Carnival or NCL cruiser, that's once and done for a lot of folks because you know I don't know if you've been on Carnival, but everybody, not everyone, but most people love Guy's Burgers, and on Royal there's a Park Cafe, and on NCL you can eat 24 hours a day, and there's all kinds of free options, and Meraviglia didn't have any free options or complimentary options, and I just think that they've got to fix that to compete in the U.S. market.
Yeah, and the UK, I think, as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think people in the UK sometimes, I think the service is a bit more European than British or American. Maybe they're, if you don't like something and you complain to someone about it, they're like, no, there we are. Whereas I think with the UK or the US, someone will sort it for you, or I don't know. But because we've only cruised yacht club with them, we've been very lucky because I think they do look after you very well in the yacht club. But yeah, maybe think about that and get some more complimentary dining.
For me, the regular MSC cruises is once and done, but I think I do want to try what's it called, Explorer.
Yeah, it's beautiful, really. Yeah.
So when you were going through that diverse group of cruises, I thought I recognized one was a river cruise.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
so I'm going on my first river cruise in a few months. So I'm excited
Oh,
to hear about yours. So talk about it.
yeah. I was invited onto a river cruise of Viva Cruises. So they're a European company that have been going for years, but they were trying to get into the UK market. And there was a group of us that they'd invited over there, who blog and Instagram and stuff about cruising. And it was lovely. So they're a German cruise line, and the food's very German, like meats, veg, and it was lovely. The food was really nice. The river cruise itself, I loved it because your scenery is constantly changing, and I know it does at sea on an ocean ship, but it's constant changing of fields and towns, and visit somewhere new each day. And the rivers, so the rivers in the UK are very narrow rivers, but the rivers in Europe are huge, wide things. And it was fascinating seeing all the barges going past carrying like cargo to different cities. And we were well looked after because majority of the ship spoke German. They every morning in a port there was an option of a walking tour. So we usually had quite a private walking tour because we had an English speaking person taking us. And the food, we would come back, have lunch, a dinner. They even had a specialty dining restaurant, like a steak restaurant at the back of the ship for about, I don't know, about 20 passengers a night. You had to book it once a cruise. The cabin was beautiful.
Now was there a charge for that?
I think you got to eat there once on the week.
Okay.
The rest of the time you ate in the main restaurant. There was a little big lounge where the entertainment was on, and then the roof of the ship was like the top deck, and there was even a pool on there. And it was when Europe had really, really high temperatures for Europe at that time. They were hitting like 40, and it was so lovely having a pool to cool off in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's lovely because you dock right in the middle of cities, which you often are able to do sometimes on ships, on ocean ships, but not always. So you were spoilt that you literally could just walk off the ship and be in the city centre. Um, I definitely recommend river cruising. It's different, but it's there's similarities, but it is different, but it's
Mm-hmm.
very enjoyable. Just
Mm-hmm.
different.
Did that
Um,
line allow children?
I think it did, yeah. It didn't not, but there were no children on there.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, it wasn't adult only. It did have, yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
And it
Yeah.
wasn't like a spa it had as well. Do you know it had sauna, steam rooms, all that,
Mm-hmm.
and a little gym, and yeah, it was just incredible what they can fit on a river cruise ship.
Yeah. Sounds pretty similar to we're booked on Ama Waterways, Ama Christina.
Lovely
So. Um,
time.
So let's talk about the future. There's some great ships coming out in or have come out in 24,
Yeah.
and then in later on in 24 and 25. Any that you are very anxious to try?
I'm quite excited about Cunard's Queen Anne. I was just having a look at a trip for that to do a short break with my husband. So hopefully in June we'll go on that.
So
Um,
when is that launching?
uh, I don't know. I think it's April.
Okay.
I don't know the exact date. I haven't. Um, oh no, I do actually. I do because they very kindly invited me, bless them, to like a preview thing on it. But I'm on a cruise, so I can't go. It's about it's the very beginning of May, I think.
Okay.
Uh, she's launching the ship. I'm also quite excited about Sun Princess, although she keeps getting her start delayed. So I feel
Yes.
people that have booked that, I would be like so upset. So bless them. I feel for them.
Yeah, I'm
It's a
hearing
great
that
time.
now the new launch is February 28th, I think. So yeah,
Hopefully,
I'm actually trying to find someone who is on that launch and get them on the show. There's plenty of people I know who are going to be on their media
mm,
trips, but I'm trying to get someone on their first full cruise. I'm booked on Sun Princess, but it's not until next year. It's going to be tough to wait, but I can't wait. I'm looking so forward to that. And going back to was it Queen Anne, right?
yeah.
I so I recently we recently did a podcast, really short podcast, talking about our 24 and 25 bucket list cruises.
Oh,
And
cool.
we're checking quite a few things off in 24 and 25. But one thing, I just got this thought, and I floated the thought in the podcast, and I did the podcast with my wife, and this was the first time she heard that, and she just kind of looked through me, and said, "What?" I was telling her. So we have one cruise that leaves out of Southampton. It's not until next year. Um, it's a Norway cruise,
Oh, nice.
and it's round trip from Southampton. And so I said to my wife, I said, airfares are crazy right now. They are absolutely
Yeah.
crazy. And I was saying, instead of paying airfare over to London, uh, why don't we take a transatlantic
Oh,
on
wow.
Queen Anne and then catch the cruise uh, in Southampton?
Oh,
And
that'd be
she,
amazing.
well, that's an amazing idea for me, but for her, she was like, "What?"
Sounds
So
like the reaction my husband would have given. What?
yeah,
What
yeah,
cruises?
yeah. So I kind of said it jokingly on the podcast, threw it in on the podcast,
I like
but
that. Float the idea and see
but
how
but
it goes.
I'm going to look into
Yeah.
uh, you know. uh, Now it would be very convenient, and I doubt it's going to work out that way. It would be real convenient if they were if there was a transatlantic from the U.S. to UK right around the time I got to catch
Yeah.
the ship in Southampton. But
We'll have
I
to
will
find an
I
airfare.
will at least look into it.
Yeah, and as the accountant, you need to show her the difference in price because
There
you
you
might
go. There you go. That's
yeah,
what you're right. I need to appeal
make
to
a
the accountant
face.
side of her. So,
Yeah.
continuing about the future, what do you have booked?
Well, we just come back from Celebrity Beyond. I've got a river trip as well next month with Riviera. I think they're celebrating their 40th anniversary, so that should be interesting in Paris.
I've heard of that one.
And then we've got MSC World Europa around Italy in April. I've got Celebrity Apex in May. We're going to Alaska, which will be our first time in Alaska on Silver Nova in September, I think.
Oh,
And
Alaska.
then,
We went to Alaska for the first time last year.
oh wow.
You'll go and then you'll say, "Let's go again."
Yeah, I
That was
feel that.
and my as I told you, my wife is not nearly into cruising as much as I am. Even she agrees. We'll go back
Oh,
to Alaska.
oh, good. So it won't be the last visit then. It'll
Yep,
be
yep,
the first of many,
yep,
hopefully.
yep,
But maybe not with Silver Sea. Maybe we'll go a bit cheaper
yep.
another time. But and then we've got Seabourn Ovation again next January, and we have an Antarctica cruise, a celebrity
Oh
book for
wow.
2026. I love penguins, so I'm gonna be very excited about all the
Hmm.
penguins.
Hmm.
It will be, yeah. So hopefully that's a lot for the time
That
being.
is a lot. Do you have a bucket list? What's on your bucket list?
I think I'd like to do a full transit of the Panama Canal on a cruise ship rather than the ferry. I mean, it was lovely on the ferry. I think we got to experience it a different way by, looking eye to eye with the workers and seeing them doing the lock work. But I think I'd like to do it on a ship. I think obviously, I'd like to do a world cruise one day. That would be amazing. But I'd like to do it with something like Silver Sea. So I think I'd have to win the lottery for that one. A lot of money on the lottery. And I think you've done Hawaii. I'd love to do Hawaii, I think. I've never been to Hawaii. I have a friend who's moved there, married a man from Hawaii, so it'd be great to visit her and cruise as well at the same time. Yeah.
How can listeners follow Lois No Cruise Control on social media and the internet?
So I have a website, nocruisecontrol.co.uk. And I'm on YouTube, there's No Cruise Control. Instagram is where I started and where my main kind of following kind of is. And I'm at No Cruise Control 85 on that because someone asked me yesterday, actually a colleague had seen it, what the 85 was. The 85 is I was born in 1985, so
Hmm.
I've always had 85 like on email addresses and stuff. And I think No Cruise Control was taken on Instagram when I started, so that's the 85. I'm not
Okay.
85 years old. Um, and TikTok, I'm on there, and X, Twitter. Yeah, you'll find me around. But Instagram and YouTube really are my main. I'm trying to write more on my website and write some more blogs.
So, Lois, before we let you go, a couple of fun cruise questions or light cruise questions, and then perhaps an oddball question. Say oddball because it's not directly cruise related. So, first, just so I can get some ideas, what's your favorite cruise drink and cruise food?
I think drink. I drink alcohol, but I don't really drink much alcohol. I kind of like the mocktails, non-alcoholic cocktails more really. And I like there's one on P&O that's very basic, but it's elderflower fizz, and it's just an elderflower cordial with lemonade. I quite like that. It's nice and refreshing. And I do like the frozen cocktails, like the pina coladas, strawberry daiquiris. Um, I think they're my favorite drinks, really, on the ship. Yeah.
Well, since you mentioned pina colada and
Mhm.
strawberry daiquiri, try my favorite, which is called a Miami Vice. Are you familiar with that?
Oh, whether it's a mixture of both, isn't it?
Yes, yes, uh-huh.
Yeah. I haven't tried it yet. I need to then, especially if
Yeah.
you recommend.
Yeah, some cruise lines get pretty creative in how they mix them up together. Some just they just put it in front of you, but some actually take the time to really do some creative swirling around. So,
Oh, I shall have to try one.
how about food? You didn't say food?
Do you know what? There's a restaurant on Silver Dawn I really liked. Had it was a grill that they did on their pool deck at night, and it got to eat there included in the price Once a Cruise, I think it was. And it's a hot stone restaurant. You can order a hot stone and cook your own meat on this hot stone.
Okay.
And I like that. They give you like this apron to put over your outfits to protect you from the fat spitting. I've only ever had that in Austria before. I've never had, like, P&O do a kind of version of it, but they bring out a hot slab and your meat is more or less cooked on it, and you just cook your steak to your liking on this stone. But in the UK, they don't really do hot stone cooking, I think, for health and safety or something. So it's quite nice, a novelty to cook your own food.
Don't they do a version of that on Virgin Voyages with is it called Gumbe?
They do, yeah, gumbo. Yeah, you're right, they do. I forgot about that. Yeah, yeah.
All right. Second question. What's your most memorable or funniest or most embarrassing cruise or port experience?
Well, I have one that I'll tell you about, but you just talking about Virgin Voyages makes me think of Scarlet Night. I mean, Scarlet Night on a Virgin Voyages ship is memorable, outlandish, everything. It's just out there, anything goes. The incident I was thinking of was we'd docked, my husband and I think it was on a P&O cruise ship in Norway, in Stavanger. And Stavanger is like quite a small town, and when a ship comes in, it kind of takes over the skyline of the town. And on that day, there was another ship opposite us, a minor Schiff one, a German one, and they docked opposite us in the port. So we were quite close by.
That's Stavanger, Norway, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's one of our stops.
Oh, cool. It's lovely.
When we cruise to Norway.
So there was two big ships though on this day, and we went out onto our balcony and sat down on our balcony, and we were looking straight across at the ship. And after a while, we realized, because I'd said to Dave, my husband, I'm like, I'm sure those people are naked. So we were looking again. And yeah, we'd realized that what was like in the direct eye line of our balcony, because our balcony was quite high up, was their sauna. And it had like glass floor to ceiling windows. And being German and European, they were all sat there stark naked. I don't know if they knew the window was there, they just didn't care the window was there, like fair enough. But yeah, they were walking around really quite naked, and we could see them quite clearly. I don't think they were embarrassed. It's probably us that were more embarrassed. But yeah, we had a little giggle at that, really.
Well, that's pretty memorable.
Yeah, it was quite memorable.
Now you didn't say the part about the binoculars, so I'll move on.
No binoculars. Didn't have any. Yeah. We didn't need them, to be fair. We were so close.
Finally, you have a huge following. So welcome to the Lois No Cruise Control fans and friends who are listening.
Thank you.
We hope that you have enjoyed what you've heard and will come back to the Joy of Cruising podcast to check out future and past episodes. Share one thing that my listeners and your followers don't know about Lois.
This is funny. I had a thing in my head about it, and then I listened to Steph, Cruise with Amber's podcast with you. And that story was exactly the same as her. It's just when I was a kid, I took the silver Duke of Edinburgh award, and after that, I was invited to a meal with a member of the royal family, and it was Prince Edward, like with her.
Okay.
And my claim to fame was also dancing with him, and I tripped him up as well, because when he came into the dining room, we all had to stand up because royalty had entered the room. It was apparently the thing we had to do. We were told, stand up. And I stood back as he was going past behind my chair. I tripped him up. I'm still alive. They haven't sent me to the Tower of London or chopped off my head or anything. Yeah, it made me laugh. I have the same, and I've met Steph many times. It just made me laugh that we have the same story. It's usually my claim to fame.
That's pretty amazing. Just for the listeners who might have missed Steph's episode, back up just a little bit and say something about the award.
Oh, so the Duke of Edinburgh Award is an award that a few schools do in the UK, and basically it's an award. I think you have to do a service to the community, learn a new skill, play a sport, and go on an expedition into the mountains somewhere and use map reading skills and teamwork with other young people, and you can as well. So you do your expedition over a couple of days and you camp in the wilderness. So basically, I think the idea is it's to build sort of rounded individuals that will help in the community and do things for charity and learn new skills and stuff. And it was great fun as a kid doing it. I mean, it's teenagers that you do it, so it's that kind of 13 upwards. And there's a bronze award, a silver award, and a gold award. I did the bronze and silver, and I'm really annoyed I never did the gold. I think just, as a kid, you do exams, you get interested in other things, and I just didn't do gold, which was I'm upset about now. So if if you've got a kid and you're listening to this, encourage them to do them all. It was great fun. And then you get awarded with like a little medal and a certificate. And the the late Duke of Edinburgh, the Queen Elizabeth's husband who's died, he was the head of this organization, and now he's passed it on to Prince Edward, who is his son, and they continue it. And no, it was a really good experience, the Duke of Edinburgh Award. It was good.
Well, Lois, it is so good to get to meet you virtually. Thank you for coming on the Joy of Cruising podcast. You are a leader in the UK cruise community and will be sailing great cruises. So I know we will invite you back in the future.
Thank you. I'd love that. Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
All the best to you, Lois.
Thank you. And to you. As
they say, we'll see you on the ocean.
You will.
The Joy of Cruising and Cruising Interrupted, each $16.99 plus shipping, and new release, The Joy of Cruising Again, for $18.99, can be ordered at the link on thejoyofcruisingpodcast.com. For each of the 3 books, use the discount code Joy of Cruising Podcast and get $4 off. The Joy of Cruising books are also available at Amazon. Order the ebook at Amazon or your favorite online retailer. Stay in touch by joining the Joy of Cruising Podcast Facebook group or following the Joy of Cruising Podcast on Instagram. We're constantly adding new shows. Please leave a review and tell a friend about us. We hope you enjoyed this brief escape to the ocean. See you next week.